Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kishore Kishori ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Marani ki jai, Gonitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading from Canto 10, chapter 68, text 42 through 43, and then also text 44. So 42 is on the board. Jala janam ivagumam Gangayam nagaram patat Akrishyamanam alokya Kauravajata sambrama Jalayanam ivagumam Gangayam nagaram patat Akrishyamanam alokya Kauravajata sambrama Jalayanam ivagumam Gangayam nagaram patat Akrishyamanam alokya Kauravajata sambrama Jalayanam ivagumam Gangayam nagaram patat Akrishyamanam alokya Kauravajata sambrama. Please chant. Jalayanam ivagumam Gangayam nagaram patat Akrishyamanam alokya Kauravajata sambrama. Jalayanam ivagumam Gangayam nagaram patat Akrishyamanam alokya Kauravajata sambrama. Jalayanam ivagumam Gangayam nagaram patat Akrishyamanam alokya Kauravajata sambrama. Jalayanam ivagumam Gangayam nagaram patat Akrishyamanam alokya Kauravajata sambrama. Jalayanam ivagumam Gayam nagaram patat Akrishyamanam alokya Kauravajata sambrama. So we can do the word for word and then I'll read the following text 43. Jalayanam, a raft. Iva, as if. Aguman, tumbling about. Gangayam, into the Ganges. Nagaram, the city. Patat, falling. Akrishyamanam, being dragged. Alokya, seeing. Kaurava, the Kauravas. Jata, becoming. Sambrama, excited. And text 43. Tam eva sharanam yagmu sa kutumba jivishava sa lakshmanam puraskritya sambam pranjalaya prabhum. And the translation for 42 and 43 is as follows by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Seeing that their city was tumbling about like a raft at sea as it was being dragged away, and that it was about to fall into the Ganges, the Kauravas became terrified. To save their lives, they approached the Lord for shelter, taking their families with them. Placing Samba and Lakshmana in front, they joined their palms in supplication. And there's a short purport by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. The city of Hastinapura began to roll about like a raft in a stormy sea. The frightened Kauravas, to quickly appease the Lord, immediately brought Samba and Lakshmana and placed them in front. And then text 44. Rama Rama Kilatara Prabhavam na vidamate Mudhanam na kubudinam shantum amsai atikramam. And the translation for text 44 is as follows. The Kauravas said, O Rama, Rama, foundation of everything, we know nothing of your power. Please excuse our offense, for we are ignorant and misguided. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurin Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragutam Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamsha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bando Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavan Ishwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnebhyo Namo Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Ram Padaswami Iti Namine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. So there's a commentary by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on text 43 and 44. And it's kind of reiterates what we read in the purport by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, but I'll read it. So these are the words of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Seeing their city rolling about like a boat and about to fall into the Ganges, the Kauravas became fearful. To quickly appease Lord Balaram, they immediately brought Samba and Lakshmana and placed them in front. So that's the purport. at least the commentary of Srila Vishwanath. So one may ask, did the Kurus weigh up the good and bad consequences of their actions, both towards a member of the Yadu dynasty, meaning Samba, and also towards the head of the Yadu dynasty, meaning King Ugrasena? This is a natural question to ask because we're hearing this particular consequence. So at the time that Samba kidnapped Duryodhana's daughter Lakshmana from her Swayamvara ceremony, the angry Kurus had considered the consequences to themselves. They felt offended. As they expressed it, and this is how they expressed it, this ill-behaved boy has offended us, foolishly kidnapping our unmarried daughter against her will. So that was earlier on, right in the beginning of this chapter. So in this particular situation, they considered the consequences of taking action to arrest Samba. So they concluded they're going to take care of this matter because they feel offended. So they decide they're actually going to arrest Samba. So they give some consideration to the consequence of this action of arresting Samba. So this is what their consideration is. What will the Vrishnis do? By our grace, they are ruling land that we have granted them. If the Yadus come here, when they learn that their son has been captured, we will break their pride. Thus, they will become subdued, like bodily senses brought under strict control. So that was their particular consideration of the consequences that might ensue were they to arrest Samba. So the consideration of consequences to themselves is in fact contrary to a maxim for rulers, for a ruler's duties and for the qualities that a ruler needs to possess. And this is what the Artha Shastra states. So this is a maxim by which rulers need to be operating. In the happiness of the people lies the ruler's happiness. Their welfare is his welfare. The ruler shall not consider what pleases and benefits him personally, but what is pleasing and beneficial to the people. So that's a maxim for how rulers need to be operating. And I've drawn this particular statement from the Artha Shastra from a book entitled The Maxims of Chanakya. So now Srila Prabhupada, he explains, and so he touches on the Kuru's consideration of their action that they've concluded that they're going to perform. So this is how Srila Prabhupada puts it. Because Samba took away Lakshmana by force, all the members of the Kuru dynasty, such as Dhritarashtra, Bhishma, Vidura, thought it an insult to their family tradition that the boy Samba could possibly have kidnapped their daughter. All of them knew that Lakshmana was not at all inclined to select him as her husband, and that she was not given the chance to select her own husband. Instead, she was forcibly taken away by the boy. So Srila Prabhupada gives that explanation of the consideration the Kurus were giving to the whole matter. Now they unanimously declared that he was most impudent and had degraded the Kuru family tradition. Therefore, all of them, under the control of the elder Kuru dynasty members, decided to arrest the boy but not kill him. They concluded that the girl could not be married to any other boy other than Samba, since she had already been touched by him. So these are, this is a painting of the consideration given by the Kurus in making their decision to arrest Samba. And that's Srila Prabhupada nicely expanding on it in Krishna book. Now there is an account of the feelings of Yudhisthira when confronted by citizens and brahmanas who wish to accompany the Pandavas when they are exiled from their kingdom after the gambling match and Draupadi being disrobed. So I'm going to read this because I think it has a great deal of significance to the maxim by which rulers need to be operating, because we got some insight into the Kuru consideration and to a large extent what they placed as important for themselves, which was their personal offense in connection with Samba's action. And here is an account of how Yudhisthira behaves after the Pandavas are exiled from their kingdom after the gambling match and the disrobing of Draupadi, where he's dealing with the citizens. And if you remember, the maxim has a lot to do with that the happiness of the ruler lies in the happiness of the citizens. So a few citizens approach Yudhisthira. Where will you go? Leaving us behind. We are distressed to learn of your defeat by deceitful means. Take us with you. We do not wish to meet with destruction by living in the kingdom of a sinful king. By such association, we will be polluted by sin, whereas by associating with you, we will be uplifted to the highest level of virtue. So this is the communication on the part of the citizens to Yudhisthira. Yudhisthira folded his palms and replied, and listen to the extraordinary reply. We are indeed blessed as the people with the brahmanas at their head credit us with merits we do not possess. I wish all my brothers would ask you to do one thing for the sake of the love you bear us. The king, along with our grandfather Bhishma, the wise Vidura, our mother Kunti, and our friends are in Hastinapur. Please stay here and cherish them. Only this will satisfy me. So that is Yudhisthira's reply. The citizens cried out in pain, sorrowfully, unwillingly, Pandavas. And that's from Mahabharata, Krishna Dharma's writing. So notice the relationship between the Pandavas and the citizens and the mutual feeling and respect and caring that's there. And one can contrast it a little bit to how the Kurus were responding to the action on the part of Samba and how their consideration of the action they were going to take was very much focused on their personal offense and some sort of offense to the family dynasty being insulted. Now, the Kuru's plan of action of breaking the pride of the Yadus when they come after hearing of Samba's arrest takes the form of the Kuru speaking with fury to Lord Balaram. Now, Lord Balaram, he delivers a message from King Ugrasena, which is described as being full of potency, courage, and strength. And this was Lord Balaram delivering that message. And these were the words of King Ugrasena. Even though by irreligious means, several of you defeated a single opponent, meaning Samba, who follows religious codes, still I'm tolerating this for the sake of unity among family members. So that was earlier on in the 22nd verse of this chapter. And the Kuru's response is the following. Note, oh, how amazing this is. The force of time is indeed insurmountable. A lowly shoe now wants to climb on the head that bears the royal throne. Notice the response. So that was 2 verses later. So in their fury, they indicate that they thought the Yadus now wanted to rise above the royal Kurus. And this is Srila Vishwanath's insight. So the Kuru nobles continue their derogatory decrying of the Yadus. Only because we looked the other way could they enjoy the pair of yak and fans and the conch shell, white umbrella, throne, and royal bed. More of their comments. So their thinking is such that they're indicating the following. Showing concern about their use of these items would have been a sign of respect, meaning if they were to give attention or notice and make some comment about the Yadus using these items of worship, that would have been a sign of respect. But in fact, they're saying we have no such respect for them. Since they're of inferior families, they are not to be respected. And so we pay no regard to them. So this is what the Kurus are communicating to Lord Balaram in response to a message coming from King Ugrasena, who's indicating that he's actually willing to tolerate the impropriety of how they actually dealt with Samba. And if we recall, it was actually several warriors pulling Samba down from his chariot after he had visibly demonstrated his capacity to be a rightful suitor for Lakshmana, because he shot an arrow into each of the chariots, into each of the chariot drivers, into each of the warriors in one foul swoop. But then they came up behind him and pulled him from his chariot, several of the warriors at once, which was breaking religious codes, because it's supposed to be a one-on-one kind of contest. So Lord Balaram's response to the Kuru's arrogance, proud of their opulence, of their high birth and their relations, brings a consequence that was not considered, a consequence to everyone in their land. So this is the interesting thing. When one's giving consideration to an action, one can consider what's the consequence to myself. One can consider what's the consequence to several other people. One can consider what's the consequence actually going to be to everyone. The Kurus gave no consideration to the consequence that would be for all the people in the land. So Lord Balaram expresses his anger after the Kurus leave, raising various rhetorical questions. So these are some of the rhetorical questions Lord Balaram raises in response to what we've just heard has been the nature of the communication of the Kurus. King Ugrasena, the lord of the Bhojas, Vrishnis, and Andakas, is not fit to command when Indra and other planetary rulers obey his orders? So Lord Balaram raises the rhetorical question that Lakshmi, served by Lord Brahma and others, directly serves Krishna. Or as Rukmini, she serves him directly. And Srila Sanatana Goswami reiterates the point made by Lord Balaram. Being the Lord of Lakshmi, or being able to give wealth to all the devotees, is he not qualified for royal insignia like the chamara? Because that was one of their points, how they the usage of royal insignia on the part of the Yadus. Basically, the Kurus felt no respect for them. So that's why they weren't actually paying much attention to it, because even to give attention to it would be a sign of respect. So this is the second point that Lord Balaram raises a rhetorical question about. And he raises another rhetorical question. We Vrishnis enjoy only whatever small piece of land the Kurus allow us, and we are indeed shoes, whereas the Kurus are the head. So Srila Sanatana Goswami spells out this question that Lord Balaram is rhetorically asking. The criticism was directed to the Yadavas, not to the Lord. He laughs. Do we enjoy only a small tract of land given by them? Because we are Yadavas, they also criticize us. Even angrier, he says, are we the shoes? So Lord Balaram does a complete breakdown, rhetorically reiterating what the Kurus have said, but with a lot of anger. And it's not done in their presence. I mean, he's so civilized. It's not that he's releasing his anger verbally in front of them. This is after they've left. Now that consequences that affect everyone in the land of now there are consequences that are going to affect everyone in the land of the Kurus. And here's the consequences, and this is leading up to where we are right now. Lord Balaram takes up his plow weapon, and this is how it's described in the Bhagavatam. Lord Balaram angrily dug up Hastinapura with the tip of his plow and began to drag it, intending to cast the entire city into the Ganges. So, as Srila Prabhupada writes, Lord Balaram seemed so furious that he looked as though he could burn the whole cosmic creation to ashes. He stood up steadily and, taking up his plow in his hand, began striking the earth with it. In this way, the whole city of Hastinapur was separated from the earth. Lord Balaram then began to drag the city towards the flowing water of the Ganges. Because of this, there was a great tremor throughout Hastinapur, as if there had been an earthquake, and it seemed the whole city would be dismantled. So that's Srila Prabhupada giving that description. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he states that by the words of Lord Balaram, his plow, or by the desire of Lord Balaram, his plow had actually increased in size. Because generally one thinks of a plow in proportion to the body, because the weapon is in proportion to the size of the body. But by Lord Balaram's desire, this plow had increased in size that it was actually able to drag an entire city. So that's mystic power. He began drawing Hastinapur towards the water. He ordered the Ganges. So Lord Balaram has that power. He can actually issue an instruction to the Ganges. Except for Samba, kill everyone by attacking everyone except Samba with water. This was to fulfill his previous promise that he would rid the earth of the Kauravas. That was one statement he'd also made. I hadn't read that one, but he had made that promise that he was going to rid the earth of the Kauravas. So though the whole city would be submerged, Samba would be safe. So now, here we've come to where we are up to today. First, all the citizens see that the city is beginning to wobble. Then they see that it's beginning to fall into the Ganges. Then they see that Lord Balaram is pulling the city. Then they try to save their lives. And they lose all pride. Gone is the pride. It's finished. One by one, they approach Balaram, taking shelter of him, since he was capable of forgiving their offense. So they understand they've committed an offense. And putting Samba in front, so very intelligent, because when you've lost all pride, you're going to actually do what's necessary to save your life. So they put Samba in front because they know that this may be, in this way, it may be possible to stop the disaster. And they approached Balaram. If the city fell into the water, Samba and Lakshmana would be in danger. This is what they're thinking. Thus, to please Balaram, they put Samba in front as an offering. But Balaram was not worried about Samba falling into the water because he'd already made the arrangement with the Ganges. So Lord Balaram, of course, is always up ahead. So he pulled the city only to scare them. That's what the understanding is. And that actually is Srila Jiva Goswami making that point. Now, text 44 has the Kurus saying something. And they say, Rama, Rama, we know nothing of your power. Please excuse our offense. We are ignorant and misguided. So gone is the pride. Imagine the same personalities that were actually saying of the Yadavas that they're lowly shoes trying to climb to the head. Now they're calling themselves ignorant and misguided. So gone is the pride. And Srila Jiva Goswami raises the question, why do they surrender? And there's this kind of backwards, forwards dialogue that Srila Jiva Goswami spells out to give some understanding of the process. So this is how he puts it. Oh, Balaram, who gives happiness to the universe. That's why they call him Rama. Out of fear, they repeat his name. So that's what Srila Jiva Goswami says. Because notice they say, Rama, Rama. So Lord Balaram's response would be, I give happiness to devotees, not to others. This is Srila Jiva Goswami. There is no other shelter for the universe than you, they may say. Oh, shelter of everything. And the word they used was Akiladara. You are the Lord of even Brahma. So please excuse our offense. Or they might say, you should excuse our offense. And Lord Balaram may reply, great offenders like you are not excused. And they may reply, we were ignorant and moreover filled with no discrimination or false pride. And the word they used was kubudinam. Since we did not know your powers, therefore you should not consider our offense, since you are merciful to the fallen. And Lord Balaram could say, indeed. So one could say that they are judging the consequence of their act of offense. You could say that. And how they're judging the consequence to their offense is that they're beginning to understand Lord Balaram's position and they're relying on his mercifulness. And Srila Prabhupada writes this way, all the members of the Kuru dynasty appeared before Lord Balaram with folded hands just to beg pardon of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is interesting to note that Srila Prabhupada writes that if one does not approach or is not able to approach the transcendental service of the Lord, then knowledge does not develop in a person. So this is very interesting because they appear to suddenly have become knowledgeable of Lord Balaram's position. They're actually saying Rama, Rama, which actually translates into Lord Balaram who gives happiness to the whole universe. So they appear to suddenly have some knowledge of his position. And so it necessitated their approaching him, because that's what Srila Prabhupada is writing, that if one does not approach or is not able to approach the transcendental service of the Lord, because it's a kind of service to acknowledge somebody's position, or it's at least the Supreme Personality of Godhead's position, then that person can't develop any knowledge about the personality of Godhead. So the fact is that they actually approached Lord Balaram in a mood of service because gone was their pride. So this principle, and if you take into account, Lord Balaram is in the position of a spiritual master because he had come, and that whole dialogue that happened between, or should you say, he had presented a message coming from King Ugrasena, and the Kurus had proceeded to make a number of statements. So I shouldn't directly say dialogue, but their commentaries, one after the other, it was to somebody who was coming as a spiritual master, because Lord Balaram did not come with an army ready to fight with them. He actually came with some elders and with brahmanas, and this is how they dealt with him. So now the whole mood is different. They're coming with palms folded, and they're calling him Rama, Rama. So actually, there's this principle of the necessity to accept a spiritual master. So they're showing some acceptance of Lord Balaram. And actually, this is when transcendental life actually begins, when there's acceptance of the spiritual master. And in fact, it's considered, there's a first item of knowledge, and that's humility, which is defined as not being anxious to have honor from others. So notice all the comments of the Kurus were very much intertwined with their great position. So that showed a complete lack of humility, And now there's no such anxiety about their position. They're actually coming, supplicating themselves to Lord Balaram. So generally on a material level, if one were to generalize, one could say that everyone is anxious for the satisfaction of receiving honor from others. Everyone wants to receive some honor from others on a material level. But on a transcendental level, knowing that one is not one's body, one's understanding is that anything related to the body, so one could be honored or dishonored, it's actually useless. It's not important. So the real trap that is escaped, and this is what actually this moment of how the Kurus are approaching Lord Balaram is indicating they're actually escaping the real trap of ignorance. And that ignorance is holding that material concept of life that, one is in such a position that one has to receive honor from others. And that's what all their comments were indicating. They were putting down somebody else to draw attention to the fact that they were needed to be the recipients of honor. So, so hence they had to be put through some suffering. So it said that Lord Balaram performed this action to actually frighten them. So it brings some material pain, actually, if one's holding to this material concept that one needs to receive honor from others. And now they've come to this moment where you could say they've been elevated to spiritual knowledge. which actually is the greatest act of non-violence, because you could say, violence is generally defined as putting others into distress. So it would seem Lord Byron had put an entire city into distress, but in actual fact, he's elevated the Kurus to spiritual knowledge, and this is the greatest act of non-violence. So this recognition needs to be given to Lord Balaram. And there's Srila Sanatana Goswami actually making some statements that it would be something like coming from the heart of the Kurus at this moment where they're giving recognition to Lord Balaram. So these are some of the statements as Srila Sanatana Goswami paints them as though they're coming from the Kurus. You are the Supreme Lord, thus we do not know you. And Srila Sanatana Goswami says that they praise him out of great fear because he's none different from Krishna as an avatar. That's the statement of Srila Sanatana Goswami. Thus, they're acknowledging Lord Balaram as Brahman, concentrated transcendental knowledge. And this knowledge is given by the Lord who's situated in everyone's heart. So in Bhagavad Gita 13:18 is the listing of items of knowledge, and there's this very nice verse which says, and it's in line with this understanding that the Kurus received this spiritual understanding from Krishna in the heart. So from Bhagavad Gita, he's the object of knowledge and he's the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart. So the Kurus got spiritual knowledge by virtue of the fact that they had this moment of actually experiencing humility because it's indicated by their coming to understand Lord Balaram's position, and that understanding is due to the fact that the Lord is situated in the heart and he's actually allowing for this understanding. So these were some thoughts on these verses. Is there anything to expand the discussion or some query connected to it?
What's your thinking that they certainly received, that it became clear for them the position of power of Lord Balaram, and they came and submit themselves to Lord Balaram. However, we see, I'm thinking to possibly tomorrow during the class, maybe investigate and go a little deeper on this subject matter, that as things goes, then they go back to their position of arrogance and disregarding of Krishna. So in one sense, lesson is not learned. Circumstantially, right now, they receive by admonishment and by fear, they were able to receive proper understanding. And they acted, and they submitted themselves to Lord Balaram. But it didn't last too long. So that situation in which actually once a curtain of ignorance is removed and we're able to see and recognize the supremacy of the personality of Godhead, but how easy is, even after going through that, to lose it. So it would be interesting to go a little further on that, that even after receiving that mercy from the spiritual master, one can actually fall down. And what is the causes of that fall down? Or like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur puts it, that even when you submit to the spiritual master, you're doing it partially. It's not full submission, but it's partial submission. And that partial submission, if it's not carefully brought to full submission, then it can drag you down. So it seems that at this moment it's just partial submission with not actual full understanding. Although, circumstantially, Lord Balaram made it very clear that, his power was, there's no match, you know. So, anyway, some
Yes,
thought.
yes, indeed. The point you're making that there's only a partial submission, and indeed, I think that's the nature of the ongoing life of the Kurus, that they go back into, you could say, that trap of ignorance. Um, and the reason for that is because when you look at the breakdown of the items of knowledge in Bhagavad Gita, it actually means one's molding one's entire life, where one is continuously accepting the spiritual master. So the whole life is molded in a particular way. So it's not that they made that decision. It's not that they now have fully accepted Lord Balaram as spiritual master and hence are going to mold their lives in such a way that it's continuous acts of submission to him. So that would be, I guess, the explanation for why the lesson in humility didn't actually result in other items of knowledge. I mean, there's, I think, 19 items, and the most important one is supposed to be that one of acceptance of the spiritual master, but naturally it has to be on a continuous basis. So even though the initial submission may be partial, it's on an ongoing basis, molding one's life so that all acts are acts of submission to the spiritual master. But this was a very graphic, dramatic kind of moment where there was recognition. But it was through the role that Lord Balaram plays, making this kind of arrangement that was so tremendously kind towards them. I mean, even after all those insults, and the complete disrespect of King Ugrasena and of Lord Krishna, through all their comments, he allowed for the new understanding to come, the proper understanding to come, but it was only possible through putting them into a fearful condition. So it's not like a conscious choice on their part to recognize Lord Balaram, but there was no choice. It was made graphically clear that in order to save their lives, they had to actually do the correct action that was asked for by the spiritual master in the form of Lord Balaram, and they did that, but it's highly motivated. It's to save their own lives. But it was a moment where the pride was gone. So, and humility was shown because they came in a mood of supplication towards him with folded hands. So, considering their previous prideful, arrogant position, it's quite a contrast. So, but yeah, the inability to, or not making the conscious decision to maintain that position would lead to certainly going back into that trap of ignorance. So,
Yeah, it's quite something just to say a little more, um, that if one is submitting oneself out of fear or out of possibly an idea that this is what I'm supposed to do, so out of some convention or duty or obligation or social expectations, all these different things, or for some material purpose, this is going to help me materially. I'm distressed right now and this is going to give me some stability, or I'm materially afflicted, this is going to take care of this affliction. So all these different material purposes that I may have to submit to a spiritual master is, as Krishna put it, it's okay, but you have to, you know, follow the instructions and submit to purify yourself from those material things. Now, if you don't develop, the actual thing is to have this relationship. Submission and devotion means love, means there is a loyalty. All those type of things have to come from a heart that is, centered on the relationship, the loving relationship that is there between the spiritual master and the disciple. And if that love is not developed or encouraged to grow, then all these different things out of fear, convenience, duty, obligation, all these things is not going to cut it. You're not going to be able to really connect to the spiritual master and submit to the spiritual master. They have to be it have to be within that area of love and devotion. That is that loving devotion that is there. And I think this is something that you see that is out of fear, you're submitting yourself. But the shallowness of their relationship with Lord Balaram was exposed. That as soon as Lord Balaram told them a particular instruction, that it was not necessarily what they believed was, just for them, then they insulted him. So far when they know their love. So
yes, the point you're making that it's the space is one of loving reciprocation with between the person that's submitting and the spiritual master. It's an area of devotion, of submission, of willingness to follow instruction, and again that has to be ongoing. So yeah, you were pointing out that the initial submission could be just like what was been the picture painted here, that was done out of fear. And you were pointing out that it could be other motives that are material motives, convention, etc., the acceptance of the spiritual master. But indeed, and that's the point you're making, and it's a part of that necessity to mold one's life, centering around that relationship. So the failure to do so or the initial motive not being strong enough to maintain and grow into one of loving devotion would certainly sever that relationship. And one often sees that takes place where disciples fall away from the relationship. And that could be attributed to the not nurturing that loving devotional space with the spiritual master. And the nurturing has a lot to do with reflection, self-reflection. So understanding the kindness of the spiritual master, that it's allowing for one's upliftment, that one actually isn't in that pitiable condition of just thinking of everything in relation to the comfort of one's body. It's a much broader outlook, growing in compassion for others and being willing to expand one's world.
I thank you, Mataji, for your class. Such detail. I was listening to what Sabal was saying, and a thought came that also I remember my spiritual master speaking about sometimes how that because sometimes it's not easy to access spiritual master because sometimes he has different disciples giving shiksha, and said that sometimes we can develop a closer relationship with our shiksha guru than even our diksha guru. So, that's one thing to consider. Also, if a person doesn't feel really close to their Diksha guru in that really deep way, it's very one possibility is sometimes finding a proper Shiksha guru to develop that deep affection, because sometimes the spiritual master is busy traveling and everything, and sometimes he has qualified shiksha gurus that one can find that like-mindedness and connect with someone who has the like-mindedness and affection, and that helps a lot too. And also, it I don't think we have to also always have shiksha from our own actual guru. It can be from a person who has a different diksha guru, and we could seek shiksha from a person who has that same like-mindedness and affection, even from a different spiritual master. That's some thoughts anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I guess can be a more tangible physical presence that makes it more tangible, the relationship. I mean, it's not that the relationship with the spiritual master is missing. In fact, it's enhanced. Uh, well, particularly if that person that one's developing a relationship with, that is somebody that the spiritual master has seen as a representative of himself. That does help, because that person is then checking in with the spiritual master, and they may be overseeing several persons. So then it's a more direct system. But yes, that could certainly be a very practical, ongoing relationship that is nurturing one's devotion and one's loving feelings to one's spiritual master. Well, particularly if the person has a connection with one's spiritual master, particularly, it's very helpful. Yeah. So I won't keep anybody any longer, because it's going a little over time, and I don't want to make people's day run late. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.